JinPingMei Original Version Chapter 19. Snakes in the Grass beat Zhang Zhushan, leaping her emotions towards Simon King. It is said that Simon Kinky built the garden shed. It took about half a year to complete the decoration and paint, and it had a completely new look from front to back. Qingfeng's whole family had been drinking for several days, and it was no problem. One day, in early August, it was Jia Tixing's birthday and we were serving wine at Shenmai's Wang. We hired for singers, musicians, and jugglers. When Simon King was about to sit down, he went on horseback. Wu Yunyang arranged wine, food, and fruits at home, and made an appointment with Li Jier, Meng Yulu, Sun Zui, eldest sister, and Pan Jinlian to open the new garden gate for a tour. Inside, there are flowers, trees, and patios as far as the eye can see, and it's a beautiful garden. But see, the front is 5 feet high, and there are 20 boards round it. There is a gatehouse in the front, and several pavilions on the 4 sides, rockery, real water, green bamboos and pines. If it is high but not sharp, it is called a platform. If it is tall but not steep, it is called a pavilion. Each of the 4 seasons has its own scenery. In the spring, you can enjoy the swallows in the hole, where the peaches and plums are blooming. In the summer, you can enjoy the Lingxi Pavilion, where the lotus and lotus colors are competing. In the autumn, you can enjoy the green towers, where the yellow chrysanthemums are blooming. In the winter, you can enjoy the Tibetan Spring Pavilion, where the white plums and jade are interspersed. There is also the shallow path of the delicate flower cage. The fragrant trees press the carved railings, the windy willows line the moth eyebrows, and the rainy begonias accompany the tender face. In front of the Yanyu Hall, the lantern flowers seem to be in bloom. Behind the Zhangchun Pavilion, the white ginkgo trees are half blooming. Money blooms on the side of the lake and mountains, and stalagmites grow on the edge of the treasure threshold. The graceful purple swallows pass through the curtain, and the oriole sings in the green shade. There is also the moon window snow cave, and the water pavilion and wind pavilion. The wood incense shed is connected to the tea frame, and the 1,000-leaf peach is opposite to the 3 spring willow. Pine walls, bamboo pots, curved water square pools, reflecting steps of banana palms, sunflowers, and pomegranates. The swimming algae is amazing, with white butterflies dancing among the flowers. Exactly, the peony unfolds the face of the bodhisattva, and the lychee holds the head of the ghost king. At that moment, Wu Yunyang led the women, either walking hand in hand along the fragrant path, or playing with grass and sitting on the fragrant grass. One is facing the scenery in the pavilion, and the actor is throwing red beans with golden scales. The other is leaning on the threshold to watch the flowers, laughing so well that Luo Wan is frightened by pink butterflies. Yunyang then walked to the highest pavilion, called Wanting, and played chess with Meng Yulu and Li Jier, Pan Jinlian, Sister Simon, and Sun Zui were all watching from the flower pavilion. In front of the building, beside the peonies, there is a peony garden, a crabbable pavilion, a rose stand, a wood incense shed, as well as cold-resistant gentleman bamboo and snow-defying Dr. Pine. There are flowers in the 4 seasons of Duan, and there are evergreen scenes in the 8th festival. There is not enough to see, but there is more to see. Soon the wine was served. Wu Yunyang sat on top, Li Jier sat across from her, and Meng Yulu, Sun Zui, Pan Jinlian, and Sister Simon sat on both sides in order. Yunyang said, "I forgot to invite my brother-in-law to come and sit down." On the other hand, he said to Xiaoyu, "Please ask my uncle to come quickly." After a while, Jingji arrived. He was wearing a sky-green hat, deep purple silk clothes, and pink-toed soap boots. He bowed forward and sat down in front of the eldest sister. After passing round a glass of wine, Wu Yunyang played chess with Li Jier and Sister Simon. Sun Zui and Meng Yulu went upstairs to watch. There are only golden lotuses, and they play by the flower pond in front of the mountain, using white gauze to fan the butterflies. Jingji might as well have whispered behind his back, "Wu Niang, you don't know how to flutter butterflies. Wait for me to flutter them for you." The butterfly was up and down unsteadily, and was a little bit rolling. The golden lotus turned back its pink neck, glanced at him sideways, and cursed, "Thieves have a short life. Listen, You are waiting to die. I know you don't want to die. Jingji smiled and rushed towards him, hugged him and kissed him. The woman pushed the young man smoothly. But he didn't want Yilu to see him from a distance while playing in the flower building. She shouted, "Fifth sister, come here. I'll talk to you." Jin Lian just left Jingji and went upstairs. It turned out that the two butterflies were never caught, but when the time came for the swallows and warblers, they made bees and beards. Exactly, crazy bees, waves and butterflies are sometimes seen flying into the pear blossoms without finding anywhere. When Jingji saw that the woman had gone, he returned to his room silently, feeling unhappy. He used the word squealing to relieve his boredom. I saw him, wearing a flower branch at an angle, and his red lips were not rouged, but seemed to be rouge. We met the day before yesterday. It seemed like there was an affair, but there was no affair. I want to see Zhu, but I have never seen Zhu before. It seems to be a refusal, but it is not a refusal. When is the appointment? When will it be? Even if we don't meet, he misses me again. When we meet, I miss you again. Not to mention Wu Yunyang and others drinking in the garden. Dan Biao Ximen King went home after drinking wine at shoddy Xingchuangzi outside the door, and passed by Nanwazi Lane. In the past, when walking in the 3 streets and 2 alleys, all the troublemakers would recognize them. In the Song dynasty, they were called troublemakers, but today they are called bachelors. There are 2 of them, Lu Hua, a snake in the grass, and Zhang Sheng, a street rat. They are often sponsored by Ximen King and are thieves. When Ximen King saw the 2 of them playing for money, he reined in his horse and stepped forward to talk. The 2 of them hurriedly walked forward, knelt down and said, "Master, where are we going this evening?" Ximen King said, "Today is the birthday of Father Jia from the punishment center. The man outside the house invited us to eat. Here comes the wine. I have something to ask you. Do you want me to do it or not?" The 2 said, "No matter what the high officials say, the humble man has received a lot of favors in the past. If he is ordered to do so, he will go through fire and water, but there is no point in dying." "Ximen King," he said, "since you are telling me, come to my house tomorrow, and I have something to tell you." The 2 of them said, "We'll have to wait until tomorrow. You, the old man, told me to just talk to the villain." "What's the matter with you?" Ximen King whispered in his ear and told Zhang Jushan about Li Pinger. "As long as you're 2 brothers, it's a big deal if someone can say this for me," because he immediately picked up his clothes and had 4 or 5 taels of silver in his pocket. He poured them all into the 2 of them. He said, "You 2 are going to drink and eat. As long as you do a good job for me, I will thank you both." Lu Hua was willing to accept the offer and said, "You little man has received little favor from you. I only taught the 2 of us to pull out the horns of a blue dragon's head in the Eastern Sea, or to take the teeth from the tiger's mouth in the Xihua Mountains. We can't go there. Why is it so difficult to do such a small thing?" "A villain would never dare to take this piece of silver," Ximen King said. "If you don't accept it, I won't touch you anymore. Teach Diane to take the money, hit the horse and leave." He was stopped by Zhang Sheng again and said, "Lu Hua, don't you know his old man's temperament? If you don't accept it, it's just like what we always shirk." While taking the money, he kowtowed to the ground and said, "You old man, just sit at home. In less than 2 days, I will take care of things and teach you to laugh." Zhang Sheng said, "I just hope that the high official will send the villain to Jia Shia's father tomorrow and agree." "That's enough for the villain," Ximen King said. "It doesn't matter." Later, Ximen King sent Zhang Sheng to the garrison mansion as a personal attendant. This is a posthumous matter and is not an issue. Those 2 troublemakers, after getting the money, still played with it. When Ximen King came home on horseback, it was already west of Japan. Yunyang and the others all went to the back when they heard him coming in. Only Jin Lian was in the rolling shed looking after household chores. Ximen King did not go back, but went straight to the garden. When he saw the woman gathering the boys at the pavilion, he asked, "What are you doing here when I'm not here?" Jin Lian smiled and said, "Let's open the door with my eldest sister today to watch." "I took a look, but I didn't know you came so early," Ximen King said. "Master Jia was so troubled today. Zhuangzi called for singers, but only 5 guests were invited. I'm afraid it's a long way and I came early." The woman took off her clothes with him because she said, "You don't have wine. Teach the girl how to drink wine and let you eat it." Simon King told JinPingMei, "Put away all the other vegetables, leaving only a few plates of fine fruits, and sift a jug of wine for me to eat." Sitting on the chair above, I saw that the woman was wearing an agarwood-colored waterweave cardigan, 5-color crepe eyebrows, a white polished silk skirt, a red stripe on the skirt, and white silk high-low shoes. The silver hairpin on her head is inlaid with green plum blossoms, and there are many flowers and green hairpins on her temples. Her lips became more red and her face was white and pink. Unconsciously, she suddenly felt lustful. She took his 2 hands, hugged him and kissed him. After a while, JinPingMei sifted the wine, and the 2 of them drank and smacked their lips one after another. The woman picked up her skirt, sat on her body, poured wine into his mouth, then picked up a fresh lotus seed with her delicate hands and ate it with him. Simon King said, "It's so spicy. What are you doing with it?" The woman said, "My son, you're just ruining the fate of nature. You don't eat what my mother is holding." There was another fresh grain in her mouth. "Just give the walnut kernels to him." Simon King wanted to play with the woman's breasts again. The woman spread out her robe, revealing her flawless and fragrant breasts, which were tightly covered with fragrant milk. After figuring it out for a long time, they licked it with their mouths, making fun of each other, and finished the song "You Fei." Simon King took advantage of his joy and said to the woman, "I have something to tell you. Tomorrow, I will teach you to laugh. You said that Imperial Dr. Zhang opened a herbal medicine shop, and tomorrow he will open a fruit shop on his face." The woman asked why. Simon King she told him about the encounter with Lu and Zhang outside the door today. The woman smiled and said, "You, a sentient being, will have done so many sins tomorrow." Then he asked, "Isn't this Imperial physician Zhang often coming to our house for medical treatment? When I see him, he is very humble. He just lowers his head when he sees someone. It's pitiful for him to see his son." "You are so pretentious," Simon King said. "Look, you can't miss him. You said he lowered his head, but he was only looking at your feet." The woman said, "You're such a glib. Does he look at other people's wives' feet? I don't believe it. He's a literary man, and he does this business? Sophisticated on the outside but treacherous on the inside." The 2 chatted and joked for a while, stopped drinking, packed up their household chores, and went back to their room to rest. But it was said that Li Ping'er married Zhang Zhushan for about 2 months. At first, the woman liked the picture of Zhang Zhushan, so she made some opera medicines, bought some Jingdong personnel, beauty ideas, and the like, in the hope of impressing the woman. Those who don't want women to pass by in Simon King's hands often do things they don't want, and gradually become disgusted with them. Instead, the women smash all their sexual devices with stones and throw them away. He also said, "You are a shrimp and eel, but your waist is weak. You bought this traitor for free to tease me. I treat you like a piece of meat. It turns out that you are a dead bastard who eats bacon butts." He rushed to sleep in the front shop, so I only thought about Simon King and refused to allow him to enter the room. Every day Erji is busy doing accounts and checking the capital. Zhushan was feeling very angry and was sitting in a small cabinet in the shop when he saw 2 people coming in. They were staggering after eating, and then sat down on the stool in shock. First one asked, "Do you have any dog yellow in your shop?" Zhushan smiled and said, "Don't make a show. There is only Bezor, so what about dog yellow?" Then he asked, "There is no dog yellow. If you have eye sash, just take it, come and see. I want to buy you a few tails." Zhushan said, "The herbal medicine shop only has borneol, which comes from the Persian country in the South China Sea. How about asking for eye sash?" The other one said, "Don't ask him. How many days has he opened the shop? Where do he have these 2 medicinal materials? Just talk to him seriously." "Brother Zhang, don't talk about it in your sleep. My wife died 3 years ago. The 30 taels of silver you borrowed from Brother Lu should have been much more valuable. Today I ask you are coming. As soon as we entered the door, we asked you for it. You are asking for help. I opened this shop for the first time. I am afraid that it will ruin your behavior and show that we have no luck. Therefore, I will tell you a few gossips first. If you don't respect me, you will have to pay him back his money." Jushin was shocked when he heard this and said, "I didn't lend him any money." The man said, "You didn't borrow any money, but I asked you to ask for it. Since ancient times, flies have not burrowed into and slid eggs. So stop saying this." Jushin said, "I don't know your surname and I don't know each other. How can I ask? I want money." The man said, "Brother Zhang, you are in trouble. Since ancient times, officials have not been poor, and debts have not made them rich. I think that when you didn't have land, you sold plasters like a bell, and you also lost the support of Brother Liu. You come to this field today." The man said, "My surname is Liu, and my name is Lu Hua. You lent me 30 taels of silver in a certain year to send your wife and children. The principal and benefit are 48 taels to me, and you will pay me back any less." Jushin panicked and said, "Where can I lend you money?" "I'll just lend you money and have a guarantor," Zhang Sheng said. "I, Zhang Sheng, am the guarantor." Yin took out the document from his sleeve and took a photo with him. Jushin's face turned yellow with anger, and he cursed. "It's so easy to kill a talented man and a woman. You are the troublemaker, and you came here to scare me." After hearing this, Lu Hua was furious in his heart and screamed across the small cabinet. With a punch, he flew to the front door of Jushin, broke his nose in half, and scattered the medicinal materials on the shelf all over the street. Jushin yelled, "What a thief! How can you rob my goods?" Because he asked Jianfuer to help, he was kicked aside by Lu Hua, and Nana dared to come forward again. Zhang Sheng dragged Jushin out of the cabinet, stopped Lu Hua's hand, and persuaded, "Brother Lu, you have been waiting for many days. Give him 2 more days and teach him to get along with you." Second brother Zhang, "What do you say?" Jushin said, "When will I lend him the money? I just asked you to borrow it, and I'll wait until we can explain it slowly." "Why are you acting so wildly?" Zhang Sheng said, "Brother Zhang, you ate all of Ash this time. Come to think of it, if you had done this early, I would have taught Brother Lu to give you some interest, and you would have collected it within 2 or 3 times and paid it back to him. That would be the right thing to do. How can you ignore the harsh words? Why don't people ask you for it?" After hearing this, Jushin said, "You are so angry that I will go to see the official with him. Whoever lends him any money," Zhang Sheng said, "You have had your morning drink again. Don't be careful." Lu Hua punched again, and he fell forward. He almost fell into the ditch. His hair was spread out, and his clothes were all dirty. Jushin shouted blue sky and white sun and stood up. Baojia came up and tied him with a rope. Li Ping'er heard people outside shouting in the room, and came under the curtain to listen. When she saw that the bamboo mountain that was tied to the place was gone, she opened her eyes in anger. Use Mother Fang to put away all the pretense. A lot of medicinal materials were robbed on the streets. The door is closed on one side. Sitting at home, someone had reported this matter to Simon King a long time ago, and immediately sent someone to the local area to bring him to the criminal court tomorrow morning. Here I took another post and told Mr. Jia. The next morning, he brought his people to Jiati's punishment hall. After reading the local petition, he called up to Jushin and asked, "Are you Zhang Wenhui? How come you borrowed money from Lu Hua and refused to repay it, but instead destroyed and beat him? What's more, love is abominable." Jushin said, "The villain didn't recognize this person, and he didn't lend him any money. The villain argued rationally, but he didn't tolerate it, kicked and beat him randomly, and robbed him of all the villain's goods." Jia Tixing called Lu Hua. "What do you say?" Lu Hua said, "He originally borrowed the silver coins from Xiao Xiao to send to his widowed wife. It has been 3 years, and he has not been able to pay it back. Xiao Xiao asked today about whether he was looking for a wife, and he did it. When I asked him about the big deal, he insulted the smaller ones in every possible way, saying that the smaller ones were robbing him of his goods. Seeing that there is a document for borrowing money from him, Zhang Sheng is the guarantor. I hope you will find out." He took out the deed from his arms and handed it over. Jia Tixing started watching and wrote, "The borrower, Zhang Wenhui, was a doctor in the county. Because his wife was dead and he had no money to send, he borrowed 30 taels of silver from Lu Hua's name with Zhangsheng, the guarantor, and paid 3 cents of monthly interest to spend. The principal and interest will be repaid in the following year, so that no less will be owed. I am afraid that I will have no proof later, so I borrow the ticket and keep the photo here. Jia Tixing looked at it, slapped the case and said angrily, "But here we come again. I borrowed money from a guarantor and refused to pay it back." Looking at the way this guy talks, he looks like a debtor. He ordered everyone around him, "Choose a big board, take it down and hit hard." At that moment, 3 or 4 people, without any explanation, dragged the mountain of bamboo to the ground and beat him hard until his skin was torn and his flesh was dripping with blood. On the one hand, 2 men were sent with white cards to escort Zhang Zhushan to his home, and 30 taels of silver were returned to Lu Hua. Otherwise, take him back to the Yamen and imprison him. Zhang Zhushan's legs were beaten and stabbed. He went home and cried and begged Li Ping'er, asking him for money and giving it back to Lu Hua. Then the woman smacked him in the face and cursed, "You shameless Wangba! What kind of silver did you put in my hand and asked me for money? I should have known that you, Wangba, would be a debtor after his head was chopped off. So I would have gone blind. I don't want to marry you. You are so uninterested and forgetful." The 4 people heard the shouting in the room and kept urging them, "Zhang Wenhui has no money, so don't just wait until the delay. Go to the Yamen as soon as possible to answer the question." Zhushan went out to comfort the man, and then went inside to plead with the woman. Zikair knelt on the ground, crying and saying, "You just have to give away these 30 taels of silver to the Buddha in the 4 mountains and 5 houses. If you don't go back with me, how can I not be tortured on my rotten ass? It's just death." The woman had no choice but to give him 30 taels of snowflake silver. She handed it to Lu Hua as an official and tore up the document before finishing the matter. Lu Hua and Zhangsheng got 30 taels of silver and went to Simon King's house to reply. Simon King stayed under the rolling shed and took care of the 2 of them. "I told you the past." Simon King was overjoyed and said, "It's enough for you 2 to say this." Lu Hua handed over 30 taels of silver to Simon King, who was willing to accept it. "You to take it and buy a pot of wine to eat, and I will reward you. There will be troubles later." The 2 of them stood up and thanked him again and again. They took the money and went to play with their money. Exactly. He often suppresses the good and despises the good intentions, and the right to do so is particularly bad. But he said that Zhang Zhushan paid the money to the punishment court and returned home. The woman allowed him to live there and said, "I just thought that the slave was suffering from sweating sickness. I asked you for these 30 taels of silver to get medicine. You can move out with me as soon as possible. Later, even my 2 rooms the house is not enough for you to give back." Zhang Zhushan only knew that he could not live in the house. So he cried and endured the pain in his legs and went to find another house. But the woman kept all the goods she had purchased, and she immediately urged him to move the original medicinal materials, medicine grinders, medicine sieves, and medicine boxes, and the 2 were settled. Before going out, the woman asked Mother Fang to scoop up a basin of water and quickly poured it on, saying, "I am so happy that my enemies are gone," and sent Zhushan out that day. This woman only thought about Simon King and found out that nothing was going on at home. She felt very regretful. "Every day, I ate tea and rice leisurely, and painted my eyebrows lazily. I leaned against the door and looked through it, hoping in vain that no one would come." Exactly. The words on the pillow are still there, but today the love has fallen. No one was seen in a room, and he was speechless. Not to mention that the woman was thinking about Simon King. But one day Diane passed by on horseback and saw that the woman's door was closed, and the medicine shop was not open. She was quiet and came back to tell Simon King. Simon King said, "I think that Short Wangba must have been severely beaten. Even if he sleeps in the house, even if he wins, he will not be able to come out to do business for half a month." So he dropped the matter. One day, August 15th, Wu Yunyang's birthday, many guests came to the house and sat in the hall. Since Simon King and Yunyang were silent, he came to Sister Li Gui's house in the courtyard and told Diane, "Go back early and pick me up in the evening. Chuan invited Earl Ying and Zida to fight against Shuanglu. Yixing was also at home that day, and her two sisters accompanied her to drink. For a long time, they all came out to play in the yard. When Dian made an appointment to reach the west of Japan, he reined up his horse and came to pick him up. Simon King was attending the ceremony at the back when he saw Dian and asked, "Is everything going on at home?" Dian said, "Nothing is going on at home." All the guests in the hall had dispersed, except for the eldest concubine and the aunt. The aunt invited her to go back. Today, Lion Street Hua Erniang sent Lao Feng and his aunt to give birthday gifts for plates of soup and fruit, 2 plates of longevity peach noodles, a ruler, and made a pair of shoes with the aunt. The aunt gave Lao Feng a penny of silver and said, "Daddy, I'm not at home anymore. I didn't even invite him." Seeing Dan's face red, Simon King asked, "Where are you coming to have a drink?" Dan said, "Just now, my second mother asked Mother Feng to call the younger one to have a drink with him. I said I don't want to drink wine, I'm forcing you." After telling him to eat for 2 minutes, his face turned red. Now that the second mother has come to regret, she is crying to her. "The day before yesterday, I told my father, but he still didn't believe me. From the day he came out of the execution center, he took Zhang, the imperial doctor, sent him away." The second mother was very regretful and wanted to marry her father. She was a little thinner than before. She asked the younger brother to ask his father to go over and ask for his advice if the father vomited. He also taught the younger one to reply. He shouted, Simon King said, "You are a thief and a whore. You just want to marry a man. And why are you here to pester me? In this case, I have no time to go." "What did you say to him? Why do you want to have tea and a ceremony? Pick a good day and carry him." "Then come the whore," Dan said. "I understand." He is still waiting for Xiao to reply to him. "He can just teach Pingan and Hua Tunger to serve his father here," Simon King said. "Go, I understand." Dian walked out of the courtyard, walked to Li Pinger, and replied to the woman. The woman was filled with joy and said, "Good brother, how tired you are today. Tell Dad that this will happen." So he cooked and sorted the vegetables himself, took care of Dian, and said, "Your mother, there is no one here. You can come and help Chanfor tomorrow and help move things over." The next day, 5 or 6 pairs of bearers were hired, and the whole task was carried out for 4 or 5 days. Simon King didn't tell Wu Yunyang, and they all piled them up on the newly built Wanhua Tower. On August 20th, a large sedan chair, a red horse, and 4 pairs of lanterns were chosen. Ding Dan, Pingan, Huatong, and Lexing were sent to accompany the sedan. At noon, Fang married the woman. The woman sent 2 maids to teach Feng's mother to take the lead. They waited until they returned before getting into the sedan chair. Leave the house to Feng's mother and Tianfu to take care of it. Simon King did not go there on that day. He sat in the new rolling shed at home, wearing deep clothes and a scarf, waiting for the woman to come in. The woman's sedan landed at the front gate, and no one came out to greet her for a long time. Meng Yulu came to the room and said to Yunyang, "Sister, you are the head of the family. Now he is at the door. If you don't go to greet Yinger, aren't you offending his father?" "His father is sitting in the rolling shed. The sedan has been at the door all day, and no one has gone out. So how can we get in?" Wu Yunyang wanted to go out to pick him up, but she felt annoyed and frustrated. She wanted to stay but couldn't go out, and she was afraid that Simon King had a bad temper. After pondering for a long time, he moved his lotus step slightly, put on his xiang skirt, and came out to greet her. The woman held the vase and went straight to his new house. The 2 maids, Yingchen and Shuchen, had made arrangements in the room early and were waiting for Simon King to enter the room at night. "I don't want Simon King to go into his room because of old worries. The next day, ask him to come out and meet in Yunyang's room at the back. They will rank him according to his size and rank as Liu Nang. Usually, a big banquet is held on the 3rd day, and the guests are invited to have a drink together, but they don't go to his room." On the evening of the 1st day, I was in Pan Jinlian's room. Jinlian said, "He is a new guy, and you just left his room empty on the 1st day. Simon King said, "You don't know that the slut is a little angry. Wait for me to do nothing for him for 2 days, and then slowly go in." On the 3rd day, The guests were sent away. Simon King did not enter his room again, but went to rest in Mengyu's building behind him. When the woman saw that the man did not come into his room for 3 nights in a row, she sent her 2 maids to sleep at midnight. She cried a lot, went to the bed and hung herself from the beam with her feet tied around her neck. Exactly, under the couple's tent, the ghosts of injustice first arrived at the Juchang Spring. The 2 maids woke up after a long sleep and saw that the light was dim. They got up and turned on the lamp. They suddenly saw the woman hanging on the bed and panicked. He hurriedly walked out of the next door and called JinPingMei, saying, "My mother has hanged herself." Jin Lian got up in panic and looked over, and saw a woman wearing a bright red dress hanging directly on the bed. He and JinPingMei quickly cut off the leg straps and rescued him. After half a day, I vomited a mouthful of saliva and finally regained consciousness. He called JinPingMei and said, "Please invite your father soon." Simon King was having a drink in the Jade building and was still awake. First, Yulu persuaded Simon King, "If you marry him and don't go to his room for 3 days in a row, won't you make him angry? It's like we put this matter first and let it go." "Not this night," Simon King said. "I'll go in 3 days." "You don't know, some of the whores are eating from the bowl and looking at the pot, come to think of it. You can't annoy me. Before your man died, and we have known each other until now. What have you said? Didn't you tell me you're going to recruit Dr. Zhang soon? I'm not as good as that guy. Why did you find me again today?" Yulu said, "What's annoying to you is that he also cheated on people." While he was talking, there was a sudden knock on the door. Lang Shang, the envoy of Yulu, asked, saying that JinPingMei had come to ask for her father. Liu Niang is hanging in the room. Yulu, who was in a panic, encouraged Simon King and said, "I told you to go into his room and walk around. If you don't obey, just pretend to be make trouble." So I lit a lantern and walked forward to take a look. When Wu Yunyang and Li Jiar heard this, they all got up and went to his room. Seeing Jin Lian sitting with him in her arms, she said, "Fifth sister, have you given him some ginger soup?" Jin Lian said, "I gave him some ginger soup when I rescued him." The woman only choked in her throat for a while before crying. Yunyang and others fell to the ground with a stone's throw, so they put him to sleep and went back to their rooms to rest. The next day, around noon, Li Ping'er ate some porridge and soup. Simon King said to Li Jiar and the others, "Don't believe that slut is pretending to be dead to scare people. I can't let him go. Wait for me to come to the room at night and watch him do it for me. Otherwise, I'll eat it. I'm a good horsewhip. I'm a whore. I don't know who you think I am." When everyone saw him saying this, they all sweated for Li Ping'er. In the evening, I saw Simon King going into his room with a riding whip in his sleeves. Yulu and Jinlian ordered JinPingMei to close the door and not allow anyone to come in. They all stood outside the corner gate and listened quietly. Let's say that Simon King saw him sleeping on the bed, lying down and crying. When he saw that he didn't get up after going in, he felt a little unhappy. First, the 2 girls were driven to live in an empty room. Simon King came over and sat down on the chair, pointed at the woman and cursed, "Whore. Since you are so guilty, why did you come to my house to hang yourself? You just followed that short wangba there, who invited you here. I have never sent anyone to my house to hang myself. What's the matter with you? Why are you peeing like that? I've never seen anyone hang himself. I watched you hang yourself today." So he threw a rope in front of him and called the woman, "Hang yourself." The woman remembered that Zhang Zhushan said that Simon King was a wife-beater and a leader who demoted women. She thought about the bad luck in my life. Today, she opened her eyes wide and fell into the fire pit again. She became more and more troubled and cried bitterly. Simon King was so angry that he got out of bed, took off his clothes and knelt down. The woman just couldn't take off her clothes, so Simon King dragged her down on the bed. He took out a whip from his sleeve and whipped her a few times. Then the woman took off her upper and lower clothes and knelt down on the ground tremblingly. Simon King sat and asked the woman from beginning to end, "I told you to wait a moment. There are some things at home. Why didn't you listen to me and marry Imperial Physician Chang in a hurry? You married someone else. I'm not upset at all. What's wrong with that short wangba? You walked him in the door, opened a shop with him with capital, and supported my business right in front of my eyes. The woman said, "Slave, it's too late to regret not saying it. Just because you left and never came back, I miss you day and night. There are often foxes in Queen Kiao's garden back there, so I asked her to change her pseudonym to you in the middle of the night. Come here." He took my essence and left at dawn when the rooster crows. If you don't believe it, just ask Lao Feng and the two girls. Later, it turned out that the slave was taken until he died, so he invited Dr. Zhang to come and see him. The slave was like hanging on a koji paste. It's normal in the basin, but the boy was deceived. He said that there was something wrong at home, so he went to Tokyo, so he had no choice but to go down this road. Unexpectedly, the boy's head turned out to be a debt, and he was beaten to the door, and the government was called. The slave swallowed his anger and lost a few taels of silver. The slave was immediately kicked out. Simon King said, "You asked him to write a complaint and accuse me of collecting many things from you. Why did you come to my house today?" The woman said, "You have nothing to say. If you say this to me, I will kill you." Rotten. Simon King said, "Even if there is, I'm not afraid. If you say you have money, change your man quickly. I can't tolerate you in my hands. I'm telling you the truth. The former used such methods to beat the imperial doctor. Just use a little trick to teach that guy to run fast, and there is no way. If you use a little trap, you will be promoted to the official position and the whole field will be destroyed." The woman said, "I know it was you who did the trick. I'm sorry to see you. If you get it to an uninhabited place, you will die." See, Simon King's anger has subsided. Then he asked, "Whore, come here. Let me ask you, who is better between me and Imperial Physician Zhang?" The woman said, "What can he compare with you? You are God. He is a brick. You are in the 33 days above. He is below the 99 earths. Don't say that you are a superior person, but you eat strange things every day. He has never seen it in hundreds of years of life. How can he compare you? Don't say that he is just a waste of time. If he can compare with you, he will not be so greedy for you. You are like medicine to heal the slave. Once in your hands, the slave will just miss you day and night." From this sentence, Simon King regained his old love and was filled with endless joy. He threw away the whip, pulled the woman up with his hands, put on clothes, held her in his arms, and said, "My son, you are right." Sure enough, this guy has seen something big. He called JinPingMei, "Hurry up and put the table down. And get the wine and food later. It's exactly the same. The sun rises in the east and rains in the west. The Tao is ruthless but sentimental. There is poetry to prove it. When the jasper breaks the melon, the man is turned upside down by his love. Feeling that you are not shy, you turn around and hug me."
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.